Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so I hope you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror film from USA and Colombia. It's a joint venture, English language, released in the year 2016, directed by Greg McLean, and this film is called The Belko Experiment. So The Belko Experiment is about this enterprise called Belko. They are an American organisation that specialise in working in foreign lands, and in this particular case it's Bogota, Colombia. So you've got the office workers who are going about their daily routine, but on this particular day it's going to be unlike anything they've ever experienced, and straight away things are very strange because there's a heavy security presence. So these Colombian officials are going through all their IDs, and so they think that something's off. These workers think, okay, this is we have to find out what's going on, but they can't find out because these officials are being very secretive. So when they get inside the office, they go about their daily routine, but then all of a sudden they realise that they have been barricaded in. Now there's a PA system where this guy is talking about the rules of the game, is that these workers, there's 60 of them, and because all the doors and the windows have been barricaded, there's nowhere to get out. But the only way to actually leave the building is if they kill each other. And so they're faced with this massive dilemma that basically changes people from being good-natured into heartless maniacs. And so it's going to turn into a battleground of survival, and who comes out in the end is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Belko Experiment. This was a very interesting film. When I actually saw the trailer, I thought this looks like something like Battle Royale or The Hunger Games, and movies that show you what a human can do in an extreme situation, that you could be a really mild-mannered person, but then all of a sudden, would you kill the person next to you in order to save your own life? And that's not something you can answer until you've been into that pressurizing situation, is that it can cloud your judgment. It's self-preservation at any cost. And I think that's the most interesting idea about this, and it was an interesting idea about Battle Royale and Hunger Games as well. And Battle Royale is regarded as an absolute classic. I think it's one of the most overrated films of all time, for the simple fact that it's a very empty experience. It has that very interesting idea, but the characters haven't gone into enough to really care about the situation. And that's ultimately the problem with Belko Experiment, is that you've got this very interesting idea that is enticing the viewer to watch it, but in the end what you get is a gore fest, and it's just a gore fest for the sake of it. And I thought that the idea of, you know, extreme situations and what a person is capable of doing in order to save their own skin, I thought that was just used as an excuse to make the Belko Experiment. And so that was the biggest shame, is that a director like this is capable of so much more, but unfortunately Greg McLean is a sellout. And I know that's a pretty harsh thing to say, but ever since his first Wolf Creek film that really got his name out there, he's made very mediocre films. Now, Rogue, which is a crocodile movie that came out after the first Wolf Creek, I thought that was great up until the ending. The ending was really bad. It was Hollywood sort of style. And unfortunately, when Greg McLean got his name out there, this is where he succumbed to the money. Is that the lure of money has kind of clouded his judgment and actually taken away everything that made the first Wolf Creek so good. In case in point, Wolf Creek 2, which is a complete spin around. It was making an absolute mockery of the great villain that Greg McLean created in the first one, and he's made it like a funny sort of dark comedy, and I thought that defeated the purpose of the first movie. The first movie got so much criticism because it was so awful as far as brutality is concerned, and that's what made it so good. That's what made this director appeal to the extreme horror audience. For once, you know, an Australian horror film has really made people disturbed. But then I felt as though that Greg McLean had listened to the viewer too much. And unfortunately, since then, he's gone over to the United States, where he's made The Darkness, that I thought was really forgettable. And I haven't actually seen Daniel Radcliffe's The Jungle, which is another movie of Greg McLean, but I will end up watching that eventually. But Belko Experiment, I was hoping when I actually went into the film that he would create something that was just going to be more than a gore fest, a lazy film. And so that, as I said, is the biggest disappointment of this movie, is because you do have that very interesting idea of what a human will do to the next person, but you never get an insight into who these people are. So they're cannon fodder. And if they're cannon fodder, you don't get any inkling into liking these people. So it doesn't feel like you've lost a friend. It just feels like they are people that are done in a very lazy and hurried fashion. Is that, okay, you're going to splash so much gore, and the gore is very impressive and by far the best part of the film, but it's a chore to get through because these people are just faceless, you know, fuzzy faces in the background. And so when they die these horrible deaths, it's more a case of wanting to know how the next person is going to die and whether or not it's going to be as gruesome as the last one, as opposed to actually wanting these people to get out of this predicament. And so that's something that I thought was that there's a strong level of excuse to this film in that, okay, this is a story about, what made Battle Royale so good, and unfortunately it shares the same problems as Battle Royale in that it's all about the violence, it's all about the social commentary, but it's not willing to get into the guts of the actual social commentary that it's depicting. And so I felt as though it had it had the idea there to give the excuse for existing, but unfortunately the director doesn't go into it to really get you that connection to the solid heart of the film. And so I thought it was a chore to watch. It was 85 minutes, but I thought it went for a lot longer than that. As I said, there are some pretty impressive gore sequences, but because, as I said, it's a caricature nature, you don't care about what's happened. And I thought there was a lot of laziness to the film. For example, you've got this very sweet lady and some horrible violence is inflicted upon her, and the only connection you get is the fact that she is this sweet lady. This is a person that you could relate to, but you don't relate to her because you don't know her as well. And so the director is kind of saying, okay, I'll just put a very sweet-mannered person here, and all of a sudden you're going to get a likability to her. And because the violence is so harsh, you don't want to see her fall into the same trap. But unfortunately, there is not enough attention to those characters' details to really care whether or not they make it out alive. So if you don't have any care factor, unfortunately, the movie does fall flat, and as a result of that, I just thought that this was another very disappointing, movie from Greg McLean, and it's one that is definitely not coming recommended. Very disposable sort of imitation of the Hunger Games and also Battle Royale. If you like those types of movies, maybe you'll like this one, but I just thought it was very empty, shallow, and unfortunately one that I will forget very soon. So overall, for the Belko experiment, go and give this one star. Don't go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.